Welcome to the Be Better broadcast, where we bring you tips and strategies and techniques to help you to achieve self-mastery and live an extraordinary life, both personally and professionally. And we bring you incredible guests from all different areas of life, from your emotions to your finances to your fitness to the world of business to the world of leadership. We bring you anything that will help you to create that extraordinary life. And today specifically, we're going to be talking all about business. We're going to talk about how you can grow your business even if you have a low budget, a small budget, or maybe even potentially no budget, whether you're currently working a 9-to-5 job like our guest today, Mr. Jon Paramore, was before he left to own and operate his own business. Or maybe you're already a small business owner. Maybe you work a job and you have a business on the side and you want to grow it. Whatever the case is, we're going to bring you some tips and strategies to help you to do that today. You know the price of admission for watching the broadcast. We don't run ads. We don't have sponsors. The only price for watching this is when you take away any piece of value, whether we educate you, we make you smile, we give you a shift in perspective. All we ask is to please share this broadcast with one person who could use it as well. That's how we've grown the way that we've grown over the last 6 to 7 months, which is super cool. So without further ado, let's talk to our guest today, Mr. Jon Paramore. And for those who don't know Jon is an entrepreneurial leader and a sought-after national business speaker. He's built several successful companies, but not without a fight. Through his own adversity, he has developed leadership training programs to help others become the best version of themselves using a full circle approach of mind, body, and productivity. At just 22 years old, Jon quit his position as a director of marketing, and he set out to build his first company. He knew from a young age that he was geared to be an entrepreneur, and he just didn't know what was required to get there. We're going to talk about that. Jon's techniques have helped hundreds of entrepreneurs learn how to grow and scale their business while at the same time helping them to take more vacation, become better leaders for their family, and live more fulfilled lives. Jon, it's a pleasure to have you here, my friend.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. I'm curious, just from that awesome introduction, when you are 22 years old and you've got a role of director of marketing, right? Pretty prestigious role.
Yeah.
What in your mind causes you to say, I want to go off and do this on my own? Like, what did that part of your life look like for you?
The business that I started was a contracting company that specialized in storm restoration, disaster recovery, essentially putting property back together the way it was pre-storm condition. And essentially what happened was we had a really bad hailstorm, thunderstorm, tornado actually that went through a part of the Midwest. And the apartment complex where I worked for a large REIT company, I was the director of marketing, and the apartment complex where I was staged had a bunch of guys move into the apartment complex. They're driving nice cars, nice trucks. I could tell that they made really good money. So one day I walked out to the pool where a couple of these guys were, started having a conversation with them, asking them what they did, asking them, how they were able to acquire vehicles like this and things like that. Just a normal kid asking probably really stupid questions. But one of the guys said, hey, we've met you a couple different times. We feel like, you're a pretty dynamic individual. We think you should come out with us and give this a shot. Right. So on a Saturday, I went out with one of the guys after them telling me, we move around the country. We put houses back or properties back to pre-storm condition. This is kind of what we do for a living. We work with insurance companies, get them to pay for the loss, so on and so on. I went out with them on a Saturday, and my first Saturday out, I signed what are known as contingency agreements, 14 contingency agreements. So basically what that is it's a homeowner or property owner authorizing the contractor to deal with their insurance company to get the house or property back to pre-storm condition. So apparently when I did that, they said that was a lot. People don't do that naturally. We did it all from knocking doors. There was no set leads or any of that stuff. It was just pure, like, get out and get after it. So the next week they asked me to come back out. I did it again, signed 8 more. So in that short span of time, in a 2-week period of time, I'd signed 22 of these contingency agreements. And so I sat down with one of the guys literally the week after that. And I said, so what do these equate to from a dollar perspective? And he said, on the low end, probably about 25 grand. On the high end, probably closer to $30,000 to $40,000 in commission. And my mind was blown. I'm like, wait, so in 2 weeks, I've just made, provided that these get approved and the insurance companies actually do, put the house, pay for what they know they owe, I just made, almost half of what I make in a year, a little, maybe, depending on the commissions, a little over half of what I make in a year in 2 weeks. So my parents would always tell you that I've been an entrepreneur since I was 5, pretty little, since they could, they knew that I was going to, but to walk into to the place where I worked and turn in a 2-week notice and say, I'm going to go after this. My parents thought I was nuts. They're
Wow.
like, you're making 60 grand a year. You have full benefits. You have paid time off. I mean, you've got like all the things, right? And you're 22 years old. So, I'm 44 now. So, you got to imagine that was 22 years ago. So that was really good money at that point in time, for a younger guy. So that's it. That's how I got started. At that point in time, I just was all in. I've always been one of those people, even through athletics and everything else that I've done, I've always been kind of an all in or all out type of person. I went all in on myself and just trusted my capacity and ability to learn quickly and went out and got after it.
Damn, what a story. Yeah, it's got to be quite a paradigm shift to be earning a certain amount, 60 grand a year. And then you go out and in a couple of weeks, you sign those big deals. And it's not like you were going door to door and selling like CDs. Like, you were going door to door and you were actually, your value proposition was, we want to help rebuild your home and bring
Right.
it to what it was before, like the storm and these horrific events have impacted your life. It's a pretty noble aim to help people
Right.
with. So I'm sure that made it that much easier for you to go up to that door, knock on it, and actually close the deal. When you say that you were 5 years old and your parents already had an idea that you were an entrepreneur in a sense, what exactly did that look like? Like, what traits were there? What did you do that made them think that? Like, and I have a follow-up question to this too, but how did you know at 5 years old that you were geared this way?
Well, I would say I didn't really know until probably midway through high school, where I kind of just felt like, okay, so it is the stereotypical rebellious kid, doesn't really want to have to beat, to have to follow the beat of someone else's drum, doesn't really want to be told consistently to stay inside of of a certain set of guidelines. And so my parents always told me I was the kid that they would put some rules in place, but they knew if they were strict, I would find a way around them. So what essentially that they had to do was create a set of buffers and say, just don't go outside the lines of these types of buffers. But I was always the kid to try to push the envelope, right? Like if it didn't matter if I was being coached athletically or, whatever, if somebody told me something couldn't be done or something had to be a certain way, I operated from a mode of like trust and verify. Okay, I hear what you're telling me, but I'm still going to go verify that that's accurate. And if I actually find a better way, I'm not going to throw that in your face, but I'm going to show you there's actually a different or a better way to do it. Right. So I was always like that as a kid, through high school and assignments from teachers and playing sports and then into my college years and professional career and, all that stuff. Always given a set of guidelines to operate in, but always trying to find a way to make it more efficient or better or more fit my personality, things of that nature. And to me, that's the, if I had to, write out a list of like, what are the traits of an entrepreneur? They got to have hustle. They got to have grit. They got to have desire. They got to have ability. They've got to be disciplined. And I think one of the biggest ones, I'm in the process of writing a book right now. And what I talk about in that book is, they just have to have that like inner self-belief. That's like, even if I go out and I fail, let's say that I go out and I wreck it and everything goes to hell in a handbasket, I'm going to be just fine. Right. Because what you can't unlearn is what you've already been taught. Right. So if I fail and I mess it up, I'm not starting over. I'm starting from that spot. Right. Most people have this in their mind. Well, if I take a business and I take a risk and I take a gamble, and it doesn't work out, I'm starting all the way over. No, you're not. You're starting from that spot. So
wow.
the risk of, I think what holds most people back, and I think the trait that has to be there if you're going to be an entrepreneur is you can have a healthy fear of failure, but if you have a high self-worth and you trust yourself internally, and that comes from discipline, and we could talk about all that, but you just go out and you're all into it, which you can't build a safety net, right? So for anybody that's listening and they're like, well, I'm going to leave my job and I'm going to build it. There have never been safety nets on anything that I've built. Never plan Bs, right? I'm all in on plan A until I exhausted plan A and plan A goes bad. Then I'll extract the lessons from plan A, recreate, and build a new plan A. I'm not constructing a plan B, right? I'm not building this reserve fund that if something happens, I'm not going to do it anymore, right? So I think that's really important that people understand. The name of the book is going to be called Fail Your Ass Off: A Loser's Guide to Winning. And that's I tell people that I coach all the time, I don't coach you from my wins, right? The wins are sexy and everybody wants to talk about that on social media and just put their highlight reels out there and whatever. I talk about all the ways that I've lost, right? Like all the things that I've done where I've actually lost, all the places where I've failed. And then I pull the lessons out of those and give those to the people that I coach and say, if you just don't repeat these things, if you just pay attention to these warning signs, these red flags, whatever, it's going to save you a whole lot of time, money, energy, learning curve, figuring it out, all that stuff. But like I said, going back to your original question, that's been in me since I was little, right? I'll give you just one quick story. I was given a bicycle, like a big kid bike on my fifth birthday, on my fifth birthday. And my dad, when he gave me the bike, forgot to get training wheels for the bike. So this bike is easily as big as I was a pretty little guy when I was 5. And my parents were like, well, you're just going to have to wait to ride the bike until we can go to the store and get training wheels. I took the bike, I pushed the bike out to the curb on the street, stood on the curb, threw my leg over the other side of the bike and rode the bike down the street. And for the whole first couple of weeks of me learning to ride the bike, I would ride the bike into the yard and bail off the bike to make it stop because I couldn't get it to stop. So that's what I'm saying, right? It's that type of mentality where it's like, whatever it takes. It's a whatever it takes type of mindset that, like, I don't care if I fail. I don't care if I mess it up. I don't care if I wreck the bike. I don't care. I'm going to learn regardless. So I don't really have a whole lot of fear around that stuff anymore, and today, I know we're moving forward just a little bit, but I own 7 different companies now, right? Wow. So if one of them blows up or I blow up all 7 of them, it doesn't matter. Even at 44 years old, I can turn around tomorrow, build new LLCs, create, and start right from that space. So people just don't get that, right? I think what happens is complacency takes over. They get into a comfort zone. They start to worry about, like, what if I blow this up and it causes issues in my family and this and that. Those are just all stories. They're holding you hostage. And the quicker you let that stuff go, the better you're going to be.
Yeah, everything you just said, absolutely well said. That fear is an epidemic, especially right now, especially with what we see in the media, what we see scrolling through our news feeds. It causes that inner self-talk of, what if this doesn't work? What if this fails? What if I can't get back up? I love your mentality around, there's only a plan A. If plan A doesn't work, I'm going to craft a new plan A. That's right. And I know that at one point your plan A in 2009, which I want to talk about, didn't work. And you went through some struggles there and you had to craft a new plan A. So I definitely want to talk about that. But I want to talk first about this idea of inner self-belief. And it's a very ethereal thing for a lot of people to talk about. But it sounds to me like you failed forward even from a very young age, which tells me that you've always, in a sense, had this inner self-belief.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, even with parents who said things, and let's face it, I'm sure they loved you, they cared about you, they wanted you to succeed, right? So you've got a job, you're making $60,000 a year. It reminds me of, there's new parents out there who now have a family and they're like, should I make this jump to entrepreneurship, or should I stay with the job and stay with what's safe and just live my life that way? It's that idea of self-belief. And I'm curious, how did you maintain that inner self-belief even amidst people, even such as your parents, who in a way chipped away at that belief? How did you maintain that belief even when your environment didn't support it?
Okay, so there's some things that I learned as I got older that I didn't realize that I knew when I was younger, right? So I'll preface it with that. And I'll tell you that inner self-belief was built, again, at a pretty young age by me just being consistent, right? So the consistency and the discipline are where the inner self-belief came on. So if, as an example, if my alarm was set for a certain time, I got up. If I told my buddies I was going to do something, I did it. If I made a promise to myself, I fulfilled the promise. I found a way to make the promise happen. If I said to someone else, I'm going to help you with the project, regardless of how I felt, I helped them with the project, right? So this has just been a pathway that I've lived for a really long time. And of course I'm human, so I've ebbed and flow out of that, but I can always come back to the, the saying that I learned probably in my 30s, which was, the only way that I'm able to trust other people is if I trust myself. And the only way that I can trust myself is if I'm consistent in my commitments, right? So I'm not trying to hit home runs all the time. I'm not trying to, accomplish a giant feat in one move. I beat most people strictly because I'm so damn consistent, right? So you can be the guy that's like, I'm going to the gym for 5 days, but I'm taking 2 off, and then I'm going to go for 5, and then I'm taking 2 off. But the guy that goes to the gym 7 days a week, regardless, or 2 times a day for 7 days a week, regardless, the consistency is what beats you. It's not that, listen, I'll tell you, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, so I'm not going to beat you with intelligence, right? I'm not going to tell you how to build a missile or something crazy like that. I'm going to beat you with consistency. That's all I have to do. Because if I'm more consistent than you, and I'm more disciplined than you, and I'm more planned out and clear in what I want and the strategy that I'm going to use, that's how I win. That's how I win. So people ask me all the time, what's the secret? How do you win all the time? There's no secret. The secret is discipline and consistency. And that's it. Because if I can string together 90 days of winning, but you string together 88, most people would look, the world, society would look at 88 and go, that's pretty damn good. I look at 88 and go, that's not good enough, because there's 2 days that you missed. Now, can you have some grace? Are things gonna like that? Yeah, sure. Don't string that together, right? So it's like another phrase that I use often is we're either planning for a feast or we're planning for a famine, right? And so if you're going to go all in on yourself, you got to get clear about what it takes to win. What does winning look like? And then be consistent in the activity and the behavior that it takes to win. And listen, this is applicable in every area of your life. It's applicable in your health and fitness. It's applicable in your relationships with your spouse, your kids, people in your team. It's applicable in your spirituality and your self-development. And then obviously it's applicable inside your business, right? But if you look at life as a tire, and you take the tire and you divide it into quadrants, and you're like, well, I'm inconsistent in my health and fitness. I'm inconsistent in my relationship and how I show up to my spouse or my kids or the people at my work. I'm inconsistent in how I invest. And I'm not here to talk about religion, but how I invest spiritually or in my self-development or me as a human being. But I'm really consistent at work. I would venture to say you're full of shit, because the reality is how you do one thing is how you do all things. So if you're inconsistent in all these other areas, but you try to convince yourself that you're consistent at work, it doesn't work. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. So
speaking the truth,
I would say is if the real money is made in the mastery of the basics. Everybody wants to have you focus on all the sexy stuff that's out there, funnels and leads and this and that. I promise you, God is my witness. If you just master the basics, the fundamental basics, take care of your body, take care of your mind, take care of your inner soul, your spirit, take care of your relationships, and take care of your clients, and be consistent, more consistent than anybody else inside the marketplace. That inner self-belief cannot be cracked. It can't, because even when adversity shows up and everything's going awry, I mean, everybody in the world just got smoked with some of the biggest adversity in 2020. Those of us that are consistent, those of us that have been scheduling pain daily, every single day for however long it's been going on, we didn't panic. That stuff happened. We pivot. It doesn't mean the target changes. It doesn't mean the goal changes. It just means how we get there changes. The road, the pathway is a little bit different. But that doesn't, some of the guys that I run with, we just kind of chuckle a little bit. We're like, this doesn't change a thing. And you can quickly tell the mindset people are in when they're like, well, this is going to wreck my business and whatever. Like, man, that seed was planted before this even showed up. People think about that before this showed up. And now all it did was it amplified what's already going on in your subconscious. That's just the way it is, right? So the inner self-belief comes from one thing: consistency and discipline. That's it. That's how you learn to believe in yourself. Because if I make a promise, a commitment that I'm going to do something, that I have to do it. It's not negotiable at that point.
It's so funny you say that, man, because we have a ton of incredible guests. And by the way, we got a lot of guests who come on this show. Rarely am I pumped up during the show, like pumped up, like I'm feeling the energy. I'm feeling the energy right now, man, because let me tell you, we're 20 minutes in, and if we stopped right now, which we're not, but if we stopped right now, this would be all that people needed in order to grow their business, grow a better life for themselves. I love that question that you asked. What you got to know what winning actually looks like to you before you can even do any of these things.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
Because most people don't know what it feels like to win, or they feel it and they don't recognize it. Right. So if I go to my team and I try to give them a formula how to win, but I don't know how to win myself, I'm out of integrity. Right. So I have to remain in integrity. Right. I always tell my guys, like, I'm never going to ask you to do something that I either haven't done or I'm not willing to do with you. Right. Never. I'm not that guy. Right. I'm not sitting behind a desk and pointing and saying, go do something that I haven't actually tried or done myself, or work through a process to help you win. Right. So even people, when they come into our organization and they're sitting across the table from me, I ask them that question. What does winning look like to you? What would your life look like if you could string together more wins than losses throughout a year? How do you think things would change? What would change in your lifestyle? What would change in your relationship and your health and all these things? It is mind blowing how many people can't even think about it. They're just like, I don't know what it would look like to win. Ask a simple question. What do you want? What do you want your life to look like? They don't know, right? Because we're living in this space, like all of us, where we have so much information at our fingertips, and we're consuming so much information that it's taken our clarity, like just a simple, I live on 3 acres, right? So just a simple walk down a trail to get my mind clear. Do you know how many people don't even do that anymore? They can't imagine being without a phone for an hour. So that's what I'm talking about. It's the basics. It's the mastery of the basics that takes that inner self-belief and amplifies it times a million. And that's just how it works. Everybody wants the more leads recipe and, the more sales and all that. But it's like, man, if you just trusted yourself, you guys, most of you guys don't understand. This isn't about resources. It's not. It's about resourcefulness. It's about your willingness. Notice the English language is so powerful. It's about your willingness to use the resources at your fingertips right now. And the only reason why you won't, and I mean this with all due respect, is because you lack consistency and you lack discipline. It's most of us sitting here today know exactly what we need to do to solve whatever problem is going on in our world right now. We know. I got a problem with leads or business or whatever. We know what needs to be done. The issue is, it's not the problem. It's how we feel about the problem. We're also talking ourselves out of it in the same breath, right? Oh, I don't feel like it. I don't feel like it today. I'll do that tomorrow. And then the same issue, the same problem shows up tomorrow. And that's success's way of saying, I'm going to keep putting this problem in front of you until you actually solve it. And the more times you put it off, it's going to get worse.
Yes.
So solve it. Stop jacking around, right? The next level only gets opened up to the people who are willing to do the work to make it open. We're not entitled to anything.
So true. It's not the problem. It's the way that we feel about the problem.
100%. How many times have you been in just a casual conversation with somebody and their focus is the problem? And then you ask them one simple question. I hear what you're saying. What would you do about it? And it takes all the emotion, pushes it all out. Right. And if they're really trapped in their feelings, they're going to come back to it. But I need you to understand how I feel about it. I'm not saying that how you feel about it is not valid. Your feelings are very valid. I'm asking you, what would you do about it? Right.
Damn.
So that's if you can just keep people in that space, our clients will bring issues and they want to tell me a story about the issue and how the issue came about. And I listen attentively. And then I get to the end. There's usually a pause and I just say, okay, I hear you. I understand what you're saying. What do you want? And then they go, because they know right where it's going to go, right? Because the story doesn't matter. How we got here doesn't matter. If we need to look at it from a different set of eyes, or you need my perspective, that's fine. But it's always going to come back to what do you want and what have you tried? And if you just stay in that space, we can solve things really, really quick.
It's the same reason why I studied NLP, neuro-linguistic programming,
Sure.
for those who aren't aware with it. I went to a conference and I learned from the actual creator of NLP, Richard Bandler, in Florida a couple years ago. And he was talking about why therapy in itself, it has its merits, it has its value, but generally people who go to therapy for a specific problem continue to have that specific problem for a while, because therapy is all about talking about the problem,
Right.
talking about how the problems come about, where it stemmed from your early childhood.
Right.
And people were on stage talking to Richard Bandler, and they're telling him their story. And he's like, I'm going to stop you right there. And you let them finish, which is great. And that probably works better in the business world.
Yeah.
But he would stop them and say, I don't care about the story. I don't care about how it started. All I want to know is, what do you want?
Right.
What is it that you want? Like,
That's it.
instead of this, what is the goal? And
Yeah.
it would cause them to actually say what they wanted, right? And then it actually empowers them to take action on that. Now, with the picture of success that you have now, and when you ask people, what does winning look like for you? I'm going to ask you, but I have a slight twist. What does winning look like for you now? But how is it different from what winning looked like when you were in your mid-20s starting your business?
Yeah. So winning in my mid-20s was revenue based. It was monetary. It was, like stuff that I could buy. Right. So we live in 3 levels, right? Scarcity, abundance, and prosperity, right? Scarcity, abundance, and prosperity. At a young age, it's really, really difficult to get outside of that scarcity mindset. That scarcity mindset is, I need to make money to pay my bills. Right. I need to make money to make sure that my lights stay on, and I have food in the refrigerator, and I make my car payment and house payment and all that stuff. Right. I just need to make this amount of money. Well, then when you start making more money, winning to you starts to look like abundance. Right. Oh, now I have an extra amount of money. I got now I can up level my lifestyle. I can move into a nicer home. I can drive a nicer car. I can take more exotic vacations. I can do different things that I wasn't able to do at that level. Winning, though, to me is not about the money anymore. It's not about the all the things and the toys and whatever. Like, I can get access to that stuff anytime I want. I mean, I live a great lifestyle and all that good stuff, but that doesn't represent winning to me. What represents winning to me right now is 2 things. Number one, I have to stay in integrity with me. I have to live above reproach. I have to be in a space where there's nothing to hide and nothing to prove at all times, right? Because when you want to know what real freedom is nothing to hide, nothing to prove. I'm hiding nothing from anyone, and I got nothing to prove to anyone except for me. That's it, right? So when you live in that space, that's ultimate freedom, because you still care what people say, but you just don't give a crap. Like, if they're projecting their own hurt or issues or emotions onto you, it doesn't impact you the same way. Right? Because you understand who you are and what you stand for, and you have a level of standards that you roll, and you don't tolerate anything less. So that's to me, that's the personal side of what winning looks like. It's the impact that I'm making on other people based on how I live. So again, I'm not going to get into the religion side or the biblical stuff, but if you think about Jesus Christ, just as an example, that the impact was less words, more how I live. Right. So it's similar to me, right? I don't need to be the influencer on social media trying to get you to do different things, trying to talk about all the guru crap and whatever. I don't need to do that. I live. Right. And so what winning looks like to me is to be able to live in a space where I'm free of external judgment, only internal judgment, based on my own consistency and based on what I want to create and the impact I want to live on or leave on other people. That's it. Right. So professionally, what does winning look like? It's not even about the size of the organization. It's not about the revenue dollars that are most people say winning. Look at my $50 million a year company, I'm winning type thing, big building, the whole thing. That's not what it is. Again, it's the same thing. If I can bring people into an organization, create an opportunity for them, give them space to be who they are, like legit who they are, give them the autonomy and the freedom to create. And in the meantime, show them ways to impact other people's lives. So I'm essentially taking me and duplicating me. That's what winning looks like. Because now, as opposed to the reach that I have, now I'm empowering other people to increase that reach to impact other people. So the more people that we impact and the more people's lives that we change for the good, that's what winning looks like, right? But daily, what does it look like? Simple, very, very simple. I get up every day, every single day. And who cares what time you get up? I'm not here to judge anybody and say, get up at 4 or what. I don't care, right? I get up every day when my body tells me to get up every day. I go to the gym. I eat right. Okay. So I take care of my health and fitness. I meditate and pray. I journal. I read, I do self-development work and self-investment work based on the skill set that I need to learn or master or that I'm weakest in at the moment. And then when I go to work, my work is very focused. Some days I'm in the office 8 hours. Some days I'm in the office 2 hours. I'm not bound to hours. I'm bound to what am I doing that is impactful, right? I've got to do something inside the business every single week that moves the needle 1 or 2 degrees, right? I could go through all the planning and all the stuff that I do and whatever on Sundays, but I'm hyper focused. I don't go to work to play grab ass and high fives and all that stuff. I go to work to execute, and that's it, right? Because the reality is, as an entrepreneur, our businesses are supposed to fund our lifestyle. Our businesses are supposed to create more time and more money. They're not supposed to be sucks that we get held hostage by, right? And that's where a lot of people are. They reach out to me and say, I'm being held hostage by my business. And it's like, well, you created that, so own it. Let's just undo it. But the business, if we think about the lifestyle we want to live, we need to design the business to support the lifestyle. And that's exactly what I've done, right? So that hasn't always been that way. I mean, obviously we're going to talk about 2009, but that's where I learned those lessons. That it's got to be that way. I want my business to support me. I don't want to have to support my business. It doesn't, help me in the slightest to be in that space.
Would you say that it was the opposite in 2009, where you were supporting the business and not the other way around? Tell me a little bit about that story and what you learned moving through.
So we had built basically a $30 million organization annually with over 125 employees inside the organization, right? We didn't know what we know now, which is how to properly hire, how to properly recruit, all the systems and processes and all the stuff that we currently have now and have built over, really since all of that stuff happened. But I got to a space, when back in 2009, when you're making a $30 million a year organization, and at that point in time, you have ridiculous amounts of money. You can pretty much do whatever you want, right? You're at that FU money level where you can fly anywhere you want, you can go anywhere you want, you can buy anything you want. There's really but when I was in that space, I felt unfulfilled, and I couldn't understand why. Okay, I thought once I got to this level, I would feel better. I would feel better about certain things. My financial woes and stresses are gone. All of that stuff. Why am I still feeling kind of empty or kind of like, here, I'm not feeling what I feel like I should feel. And then I started taking a look around, and I realized, I was detached from my wife. I had spent my entire daughter's first year of her life, I spent away from her, traveling and setting up new offices and all of that stuff. I was detached spiritually. I was detached physically. So when I'm standing there and at the top of the hill, and I have this big pile of money that I'm standing on, there's zero fulfillment, right? So what essentially happened is the perfect storm. In 2008, 2009, I had some investors that came to us and said, we want to start building spec homes, and we want to start developing residential real estate and, whatever. So instead of staying focused on what we were really, really good at and resolving all my issues, we diversified and moved a large chunk of our portfolio into residential real estate. And then when the market collapsed, we got caught holding about $15 to $20 million worth of residential real estate loans that all got called all at the same time. Mm-hmm. So you want to talk about, this happened in a 90-day period. So you want to talk about being, you're going from having money to not having money in a 90-day period. You're going from having a lot of, like a plethora of money to being bankrupt in a 90-day period. So that happened. And then big relationship issues, nearly being divorced, not seeing my child, being detached. I mean, so, I remember early 2010 sitting behind a desk, a loaded pistol on the desk, and contemplating suicide, wondering if this mess could ever be cleaned up. And so, but thank God I had some really good people around me that, that helped me and supported me in that space. But it still took me 3 years to understand that going through, to really own that going through a bankruptcy, having that happen, the bankruptcy was not who I was as an individual. It just happened as a result of some poor decisions and not being conscious of certain types of behaviors and so on and so on. So once I put that bag down and said, I'm not a bankrupt human being, I went through a bankruptcy. I had to file bankruptcy because of not being calculated in my decisions. Okay, stop feeling sorry for yourself. Let's pick yourself back up. You still have a really high level skill, right? You still have a lot of skill set. Let's go help a business and see where it is, right? So I went inside of a business in late 2010, I grew that company from 900,000 a year to 6.5 million in 18 months.
Damn.
And then I kind of had that renewed sense like, okay, bro, like that you're not this thing, right? It's going to follow you around for a while and you're going to have to deal with it and whatever. So I will tell you where I came up with one of my mentors taught me the nothing to hide, nothing to prove. And where that came from was when you go through a bankruptcy and you collapse a company of that size, anybody that was part of that has a negative mindset becomes a hater, right? They'll smash you online and, all of that fun stuff. And I try to fight fire with fire and take those people on and, all that stuff. Big mistake, right? So what I learned is the more that I tried to defend my position, the worse it got. But once I actually went online and told my story, it went away because now they have no more rocks to throw, right? I just basically emptied their bags full of rocks completely out because I'm like, let me own this for a minute. Okay. This happened. Now what do they have no story to tell at that point because I just told it, right? So I've learned and I've operated ever since then in my life that if I go through adversity or I go through something like that, it's best for me to get it out and deal with the consequences of whatever it is immediately, then let it sit and fester and try to build lie up on lie up on lie up on lie to when you then when you get to the spot when you finally do tell people, they don't believe you because they're like, why did you hide from that for so long, right? So but that's in that space where I live now where, again, 2009, I learned so many lessons then. When I talk to my clients now, I still take lessons from the stuff that I learned then. And I'm like, you can do this, but this is going to be the outcome. So you can't be unconscious of the outcome anymore. So as long as you're conscious of the outcome, you can still make the decision, but you need to know that this is what's going to happen.
Now, when you, in late 2010, when you decided, I want to go into a business and see how I can help them grow and not start over, but start from experience, like you said, did you go into that business as an employee or did you go in as a consultant, like a revenue share? Like what did that look like necessarily? And what were the emotions behind that for you?
I went in as an employee. So I went back to the basics.
Yeah.
And I said, I can outsell just about anybody that I know, right? That what I know is with 100% certainty, I can sell well, very well.
Yeah.
So I started as a sales rep and went in there and just started selling like crazy. And then I noticed some of their marketing was incongruent. Like they were creating brand confusion. So I asked if I could clean that up and I paid for it, right? Out of my own pocket. I paid to clean that stuff up. So, and in my mind, and I wasn't, they looked at it as I was trying to prove it to them. I wasn't trying to prove it to them. I was trying to reprove it to myself that I still had this talent, ability, so on and so on, the skill set that I had learned. So I just start taking chunks. And eventually the owners take notice and they're like, we should hand this guy more stuff. And so they just slowly started handing me more and more and more. I was able to handle it. And, again, within about 18 months, the owners were pretty much able to do wherever they wanted. They didn't even need to come into the office anymore. They're like, we just need to let this guy run it. Because, we didn't know that you knew how to do all this stuff. We just thought that you were this really good sales guy. Holy crap, you really have a large skill set. So that's really how it happened, right? I didn't really ask for permission, so to speak. I mean, I asked them if they cared, but I just started taking control of different things and seeing if things worked based on, my own internal beliefs and skill set that I learned, and it worked, right? And then, so in 18 months, we had some issues with commission structures and things like that. So I moved on and helped another company. And then I started my own company again, sold my own company. And then, I was like, once I got out of construction, I realized that wasn't really God's calling for me. I learned a lot in it and I was really grateful, but I was like, this isn't where I'm supposed to be. And as soon as I got out of construction, I started having contracting guys reach out to me and say, hey man, you are our competitor and you beat us all the time. How did you do? Will you be, if we paid you some money, would you be willing to show us how to do it? And so that's how the consulting side got started, right? So it's like taking all the things it's been 7 years since that happened, but we've now process mapped everything out. And I don't care. I've been in so many different businesses at this point. We break it down to what we call the 5 boxes: marketing, sales, operations, fulfillment, and hiring. Okay. Every single company that I've ever been in, it's congruent to the 5 boxes. We take our systems and processes, put them into the organization, and I can grow and scale just about any type of company that has a sales team or relies on a sales team using that model.
It's such a powerful story in itself too, that I think there's a couple big pieces here that I think is really important for everyone to pick up. When you had people who were going online telling their version of the events that happened after the whole debacle in 2009 for you, you decided to take ownership and tell the story the way it truly was, right? You took
Yeah.
ownership for your faults. Hey, this is where I went wrong. This is what I'm doing as a result. This is the truth. Yes, I went wrong here, here, here. When you take ownership, it's hard for other people to really come out of the woodworks and bash you, because you've already taken ownership. I think that's a very important thing. That you said it quickly, but it's so powerful. And we could talk just about that. But something else is, you as an entrepreneur for many, many years then had the humility to go back to being an employee, but not just being a quote unquote employee as most people know it, but an employee who does his role very well,
Mhm.
and continues to add value to the people you're working with. So I know so many people inside of companies who have built themselves their own position. I built myself the position of training director in a large, 350 person sales company in upstate New York, because I loved training people and I wanted to do more of it. I started to do it on my own and create events, and they took notice and they said, Brandon, we would love you to do this full time. Even if you're not a business owner, you can be an owner of sorts inside of an existing structure.
Sure.
I thought it was really important to point out the humility there, and your ability to continue to add value while working inside of the structure. One thing I want to know, you mentioned the 5 boxes. Let's talk about a small business owner today who, let's say they're a coach, okay, or a consultant or whatever, because we both have experience in that world. They currently are working a job to fund their business during the fledgling stages of their coaching. They can only focus on 1 or 2 specific areas in the business because they have this, lapse. They don't have the time allowed. All right. Or quote unquote, the resources. What areas would you recommend this small business owner or coach to work on with the limited time that they have for the best result?
Okay. Again, I'm going to preface it with I'm very blunt and direct and to the point, and I do it because I don't like to waste people's time with a lot of fluff and energy and whatever. Number one, I would say drop the story. You're either all in or you're not. You can't keep playing just the tip with I don't have the resources and I don't have the this and the that or whatever. You're not going to ever get what you need, and success, universe, God, whatever, is not going to give you the resources or the tools or the whatever if you keep waffling back and forth, right? So you, number one, long before you start asking someone like me from a business standpoint, what things should I focus on? I would say you need to get your mind right first, because mentally you need to get yourself to a space where you trust your own ability. And I'm going to tell you, if you are in a job and you're thinking about making the transition, but you're not like basically working the equivalent of 2 jobs. And what I mean by that is like you're working a job, but then you come home at night and you're on YouTube or whatever, trying to learn the skill set that you need to learn in order to be able to be done with that. You're fooling yourself. Okay. And second, if you haven't made a time commitment as to when you're actually going to be all out of that job and completely locked into this coaching business that you are going to run, you're fooling yourself, right? You're going to live in that world of ambiguity for too long. And then eventually you're going to marinate out of it. And third, and the final point that I would make, and then I'll tell you where I would start if I were you after mindset, is you have to get yourself to a space where whatever you're coaching in, the market sees you as a master of that thing, right? Nobody wants to be sold your shit. Nobody does. What they want to be helped. So if you're putting a lot of value out into the market and you have no fear that somebody's going to take the quote unquote secret recipe that you have, because guess what? Somebody already knows whatever you're coaching on. I can almost guarantee it. It's the methodology and how you coach it and how you show up that is the separator, right? So there's a million guys that do what I do, right? But they don't do it how I do. And they're not as consistent as me, and they're not as disciplined as me. And they don't show up with the same energy and vigor and passion and speak the truth into people like I do, right? Because they're too afraid. So I've mastered that. That's me looking at the market and saying, this market needs somebody like this to come in, who's not going to hold any punches, who's not afraid, right? Who speaks their language, who understands their struggles, and comes in and offers value and not sending pay links right out of the gate to try to make a bunch of money. So it's that you guys you got to get your mind right. You got to get clear on exactly when you're going to graduate out of being an employee. And then you have to be 100% committed to whatever you're going to teach and speak with the passion like you said, that I'm speaking with today, right? I speak like this all the time when I speak to people. And it's not because I've gone to like school and worked on speaking and whatever. I speak from here, from the truth, from the heart, right? I go into rooms full of people who I know are struggling financially, who I know are struggling mentally, who I know are struggling physically. Their relationships are in turmoil. Their business is holding them hostage, whatever. And I'm like, do you guys want this shit to get better or not? If you want it to get better, I can help. If you want to stay in that space and have somebody validate you and play patsy with you, I can't help you, right? I'm not in the business of that. So, but that's me because I care about these people, right? So all of that being said, John, where would you start? 5 boxes, right? Can you generate a lead at will? Can you generate a lead at will? Predictably, sustainably, and reliably. Those are the 3 markers, right? Do you have something going on in your world that feeds you leads all day long? If the answer is no, who gives a crap about the other 4 boxes? If you can't generate a lead and if you can't generate a sale, you're screwed. That is business 101. I got to learn how to generate a lead at will, predictably, sustainably, and reliably. I have to be able to do that. If I can do that, I'm good. Because if I can get somebody to look at me, even if it's expensive to do it, if I can get somebody to pay attention to me, if I can get somebody to be in alignment with me, if I can get somebody to raise their hand and say, I want to have further communication with you, I'm good right there, right? Then you have to learn how to close them. You have to learn how to sell them in without selling. Nobody wants to be sold. So the best way to get somebody to buy something, know, like, and trust. Get them to know, like, and trust you. Build an authentic relationship with them. They're going to engage with you. They're going to be like, I like this guy. I like the way he speaks. I like the way he resonates, so on and so on. And then they're going to pull the trigger. Then the backside stuff, I call it the back office stuff, the operations, the fulfillment, the hiring, the recruiting, all that stuff that happens after that process is relatively simple. You can hire integrators, you can hire administrative people, so on and so on to help you on the fulfillment side. But if you can't generate a lead, if you can't generate a sale, you're done. You're done. So if you're like, okay, I'm working on getting my mind right, now where should I put my time and energy? You should learn everything there is to learn about social media marketing, both organic and paid. You should learn everything there is to learn about leveraging people's audiences, both organically and paid. You should learn everything that you need to learn about Google, SEO, SEM, PPC, LSA, all these things, right? So you guys are going to be like, how the hell did you learn all this stuff? Exactly the same way that I'm telling you. I made a list of all the places where I was weak, where I was exposed, where I was inefficient, and I went to war with those things. And I'm like, if I have to stay up at night, my wife and kids are asleep, and I have to come back out at midnight and get back on YouTube and document and process and learn and draw and mess up and build a funnel and wreck it and so on. So if that's what it takes, I'm all in. I told you guys, it's the discipline and the commitment that's going to beat you every single time. Because they're like, if you're sitting there right now and you're like, I don't have that, do yourself a favor and don't become an entrepreneur. You could still be a really great intrapreneur inside of someone's company. But if you don't have that and you're going to coach people, no. That's not going to work. It's not going to work because people are going to smell your inauthenticity. They're going to see that you're out of integrity. They're going to see that you're not congruent with what you're trying to teach them. And they're going to be like, nah, I'm not going to pay you $5,000 or $10,000 or $50,000 to have you help me fix my company. Why would I? You can't fix your own. Right? So you know why people hire me? It's this passion. It's this intent. It's because I've been there. It's because I have experience, like legit experience, not some, bullshit like, hey, I owned a business for 2 years. I'm going to be a coach kind of crap. I have a legit experience. So they don't hire me to come in and blow smoke in their ass. They hire me and say, I got a problem. And I'm like, okay, cool. It's going to cost you $50,000. I'll diagnose your problem. And I'm just giving you an arbitrary number. It doesn't always cost that. But I'll come in and show you where it is, fix the problem in and out, no problem. So I'm just telling you guys, you gotta have that inner self-belief. You gotta have that willingness to work. You gotta get that mindset right. And then every single space where you're exposed or you're weak, you have to go to war with it and learn it. And don't try to outsource it. Don't try to hotwire the process. Oh, I'm going to find a guy who knows how to do that because I don't want to learn how to do that. That's irresponsible.
Oh man, I thought the mindset stuff was powerful. Now the tactical, I like how you're able to combine the mindset with the tactical, but you always start with the mindset.
It's always mental.
I want to touch on one thing you said before we talk about the live events that you host each quarter.
Sure.
So let's talk about when it comes to, step number one, obviously, is the mindset. And then you talk about the generating leads to a sale has to be front and center. Can you predictably and sustainably do this, right? You said in order to do this, you have to be seen as the master in whatever the space is that you're in. So let's say that I join and have committed to, I will become a master in this space, show others that I'm the master, and help them and add value to them. How long should a coach, in your opinion, how long should a coach be adding value before they post the pay link or before they ask for the sale?
Can you get results? That's where every time somebody asks me that question, I ask them one thing: can you get results? And I'm not talking about a one-off thing, right? Do you have proof that what you're saying actually works repeatedly? Can you get repeated results? People like to throw stupid time frames around that. Oh, 10,000 hours and 90 days and whatever. No. If somebody has a different set of discipline than you do or I do, and they work, let's say they work 20 hours a day trying to master this specific thing, and they find a recipe that works, and they're able to duplicate it and they're able to replicate it, and it's cranking out results every single time that they do it, and they want to monetize that, good for them. Good for them. That's great. Also understand that, like, when that stuff changes, they might have to go back into the laboratory and reinvent or change things up, especially as it relates to marketing, because the algorithms and things change all the time. So it's not about, and so you guys hear me, it's not always about time and things like that. Now, I will say, if you're going to try to coach guys who have been in business for a really long time, and if you struggle to some degree to get results and they feel like that you aren't confident in what you're doing, they're going to figure it out. They're going to figure it out relatively quickly. So it's best to stay in your own lane and build something that you have proof that it actually works long before you start becoming a quote unquote coach. And there's a difference too, right? There's a difference between a business coach and a lifestyle or a mindset coach, or somebody who's helping a human being, right? Yeah. Somebody that's helping a human being, like, change the mindset, change the way you think, change the way you feel, change the way you interact, change the way you lead, whatever. That's going to take time. That's going to, I've seen a couple of younger guys, maybe in their late 20s, who want to become lifestyle coaches. And I'm like, no offense, bro, but you haven't lived your life yet. You haven't lived long enough to even experience some of the hurt and pain and struggle and all of that. That's real, that people feel in the development side of entrepreneurship. So you're kind of doing, I love the passion. But it's like you're kind of doing people a disservice, because you don't know the ins and outs of the real internal struggle that's happening unless you've been, trained and gone to school for it and, the whole 9 yards. But I would say, as it specifically relates to business, you could become a master at something relatively quickly if you're getting consistent results. I would say you've reached some level of mastery. Can you always learn more? Sure. Right. So those are the kinds of people that if I'm going to outsource something specifically related to business, it's because I took the time and learned what I'm outsourcing, so I can have intelligent conversation between the people that I'm outsourcing stuff to. But it's also, they can show me a track record of proven results.
Well said. And thanks for being real there too, because, a lot of people, they just give the normal coined industry jargon, but right. you're being real, right? Can you actually help somebody? Can you actually get a result? Can you do it over and over, not just a one-off result?
Yep.
That's awesome. I want to talk about the live events that you do in person each quarter in St. Louis. So who are these events for that you do, 4 times a year? And what does one of these events look like?
Yeah. So we do the events for entrepreneurs. I don't really care size of business. We've got guys that come to the events that are doing $1 million a year. We've had guys come to the events that are doing $100 million a year. But essentially what it is the people that we invite, men and women, are typically reached a spot inside their organization where either they don't have a level of fulfillment that they feel like that they should have, or they've reached a plateau in the organization and can't seem to break through it. So we bring them to the events. The event is called The Reckoning. And essentially what we do is we go full on, head on with all of the limiting beliefs that are keeping you stuck, right? So anything and everything and I don't care if it's stuck in a relationship, health and fitness, I don't care if it's in your spirituality, in your business, whatever. Typically, if you're stuck in one area, you got some type of resistance in most of the areas. But we bring them in. We get down to the brass tacks, the real raw. I don't care about the story, all that stuff. We unpack it. We challenge the crap out of them. We take them, essentially to what we call the abyss, where we take them to a place where they're mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually exhausted, so I can see who they really are, right? Because we only see ourselves as who we really are when we're put under a very high level of stress or duress, right? So under stress or duress, we can see our lowest form of common self. And that's the person that needs to be improved, right? Not the guy that we walk around and show everybody that who we are all day long. We need to go to war with the person that's the weak person inside of us. And my buddy Andy Frisella calls it the bitch voice, right? The guy that keeps trying to talk us out of everything every time we wake up or try to do something important. We got to go to war with that version of us, right? But most people don't know what that looks like. They have a pretty good idea, but when you put them under mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual pain, and then they meet that person face to face, now they can resolve it, right? Now they can resolve, and we get them in that space. And I mean, sometimes people cry. Not everybody, but
how do you bring them there? How do you get them to that place?
How do we get them to that place?
Yeah.
With a lot of physical exertion, combined with some really deep, thought-provoking mental questions that they got to think about, and really push them to a place where we can see as kind of what we label as the break point. And so once they're in that space, then I can have a real conversation with them. And the real conversation is so simple. Do you like this? Do you like this version of you? Do you like how this feels? Do you like how you're showing up right now? And most people are like, no, this is the version of me that I've been trying to reconcile for a long time. And you're like, well, here, meet them, right? So now that you get clear about what you don't like about it and what you want out of it, and then I'll show you how to create that version, because that's who you really are anyway, right? So it's like, let's graduate away from this version and let's create who you really were meant to be by putting this version of you to bed, right? And so I think what's great that most people, it's kind of a higher concept that a lot of people don't understand, is like, we're going to meet ourselves, different versions of ourselves, several different times throughout our life. For me, usually there's 4 or 5 different versions of me that come out every single year, because I'm working to create a different version every 90 days. That's how the next level opens up.
Wow.
So it's mind blowing for a lot of people. It puts a lot of stress on a lot of people. The standard that we inside of the organization constantly is pushing our team to level up. But what I also know to be true is, you're going to get to a spot where your floor, or the lowest version of you, is like 10 times better than anybody else out there, right? So it's under that stress and pain and duress, when there's guys who have been in our program for a long time. They come back to those events just to test themselves. And we watched a woman this last event. I was crushing her. I was putting her through mega physical and mental and spiritual and emotional strain over and over and over. And she did the whole thing with a smile on her face. And I'm like, yeah, wow. This person is a badass, because now they've gotten control of it, right? And so even when the voice shows up to try to talk him out, she's just laughing at it. And they're having to, do physical work, and she's sprinting from one station, and all these people are like, what the hell is wrong with her? And I'm like, in the past 90 days, she went to war with her old version of self, and was like, I will not show up as that person ever again. Not for my husband, not for my kids, not for my team, not for my clients. And she's not. I mean, she's a force to be reckoned with now. You just took a relatively powerful woman and made her exceptionally powerful, right? So yeah. And not really, I didn't really do anything with it. All I did was show her a path, right? She had to do the work. She had to make the choice whether or not she was going to be leaning into that or not. So, that's the blessing and the curse of all of it, right? Because you can show a lot of people who they could be, and they don't want to pay the price of the pain and the work that it takes, even though they know that you're right. And sometimes people just fall in love with their excuses and complacency, and that's who they want to be. And that's okay. I don't judge, right? So I also make sure people don't lie about it either. So if that's who you're going to show up to be, and you're going to come back to an event 90 days later and you're the same version of you, don't try to tell me and sell me on excuses and time and this and that. No, dude, you just chose not to do the work.
Yes. You remind me a lot of Andy Frisella, and in your own great way. I mean, I love Andy Frisella, the Real AF podcast. Like, can totally see this being a conversation that takes place there, which is super cool because this is one of the first like really real and raw conversations we've had on the broadcast. So I thank you for that. But I want to ask you, when is the next reckoning, or where can we sign up to find more information about the reckoning?
Yeah. So the next one is December 15th and December 16th of obviously next month. So we're like 4 or 5 weeks away from making that happen. I'll get the link to you. I can't remember the link, and that's really bad of me, but and operations people are probably going to kill me right now. But I don't have the link off the top of my head. They manage all of that stuff for me, and I'm unprepared. So
we'll put it in the description. Yeah, shoot it my way. Send me an email, and everyone listening, the link will be in the description to go check out this upcoming reckoning. And like we just said, Jon hosts one of these 4 times a year in St. Louis, Missouri, and you'll be in for quite a ride of self-transformation and actual results.
Yep.
Super cool. My last question for you, Jon, is in this chapter of your life, what is the positive impact that you wish to make on your audience and the world?
So I think there's 2021, since 2009, 2021 has been, and I use this term loosely because again, the English language is really powerful. It's probably been one of the hardest years of my life since 2009, because there were areas that I have been, even myself internally, that I've been avoiding that I knew needed to be resolved. And I worked to resolve the shit out of them this year, right? So I made a list of all the things that I kept feeling like coming up, and I went and resolved those things. So what I already know based on the resolution and what we're creating going into 2022 is what I'm working to create, and the vision that we have in our mind is to basically build an epicenter for entrepreneurs where they can go and get everything that they need. If they need health and fitness advice, we've got a team of people that do it. If they need spiritual and self-development work, we got a team of people that do it. If they need help with relationships or leadership development, we got a team of people to do it. If they need help in business, we got a team of people to do it. Right? I've seen this vision for several years, but I could not build it in integrity until I went to war with a couple of sections of my own life. So I finally sat down with some of my advisors, and I'm like, here are some things that I have to go to war with. This is really going to be painful. I'm going to need some space. How do I create space and make it to where my business doesn't suffer while I'm doing these things? And we mapped out a process to do it, and I went to war. But what people are going to, essentially where I'm going with this is in 2022, what people are going to see is 100% all in full version of me. Right. And I would say most of what it's been is probably 95. And that's still, in my world, really, really good, but it's not good enough. Right. And I owe it to all the people, the clients, and the people that we serve, my family, all these people, to be all of me, all in, nothing to hide, nothing to prove, completely resolved, and be able to show up in just a different space where it's like, a man possessed, right? At that point, change to help entrepreneurs be the best version of them, but not from my words. They will no longer hear it. It will be proof, and I'll let my actions speak, right? But I had to get to that space, right? And most people, there's probably, I would say most people have 1 or 2 things that they know when I use this language pop up into their mind, and they're like, damn, I would love to resolve that, but that's going to create a lot of pain. I'm telling you, you have to do it. You have to, because it's also the same thing. You don't think it's that big, but it's the same thing that's holding you back. It's the same thing that little voice in the back of your mind keeps saying, we need to resolve it. We need to resolve it. We need to resolve it. This is the thing. This is the thing. And you just keep sedating it, trying to put it out, drinking, watching TV, whatever. You're trying to just quiet it down. It's not going to go away. It is not going to go away. And you have to resolve it in order to get to that space of ultimate freedom. So
wow. I'm looking forward to seeing that 100% Jon Paramore for sure. I'm looking forward to following you. It's an incredible mission. Where's the best place we can follow you so that we can see this boost that you're going to make?
You can go to my Instagram page, Jon Paramore at Jon Paramore 77. You can go to my Facebook page. I'm pretty easy to find there. I would also say, if you guys get something out of this content, I do a podcast called Go to War. Literally, if you go into the iTunes or whatever section, you search Go to War, our podcast pops up. But I talk about this kind of stuff all the time. So, like, comment, share, follow, all that good stuff. But that's it.
Awesome. Everyone, links in the description to go check out Jon's Instagram, Facebook, Go to War podcast, as well as the Reckoning event coming up this next month, and that happens every quarter. Jon, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thanks for this raw and real conversation, brother.
You bet. Thanks for the time.
That was definitely the most real conversation we've ever had on the broadcast. The name of this is How to Grow Your Business with a Low Budget. And I hope you saw and have realized and have taken away that in order for you to do that with a low budget, with no budget, with the highest budget is right here. It's not the resources. It's your ability to take the resources that you have and make the most of those resources. It's your ability to throw out this story and these excuses of why what you've been doing hasn't worked or why it won't work in the future. It's your duty to go to war and master these basics of your body, your mind, your soul, your relationships. Stay consistent with the basics. And that's how you go to war. That's how you evolve into the next version of yourself. And again, all of Jon's events, The Reckoning, his pages, social medias, and his podcast, which you got to check out. If you're pumped up from this conversation, which I know you are, go check out the Go to War podcast, link in the description. If you found any value from this episode, which I know you have, you probably did in the first 5 minutes, share this with one friend who needs to hear this today. Share it with them right now. Thank you for watching, as always. And until we talk again next time, continue to be better.